Hi, folks. Welcome to the 68th BFI London Film Festival in partnership with American Express. And thank you so much for joining us for today's scene. My name is Felix Farrow. I'm a young programmer with BFI Film Academy. This month, Film Academy young programmers have been speaking to filmmakers selected as part of the BFI London Film Festival's Generation Now program. So Generation Now shorts explore what it means to be a young adult and the pressures, problems, and anxieties that we face. So on that note, I am incredibly thrilled to welcome Tr Ayeni, who will be talking to us about her nominated short, Sylvia. Thank you for joining us, Tara, and thank you for agreeing to be a part of it. We are really, really immensely grateful.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm honestly honored. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Tara got her start at Arts University of Bournemouth just a few short years ago, but has already gone on to join the production company Ocean Group as the head of development, achieving writing credits for Channel 4 and also developing a show for Netflix. Her adoration of horror is evident in spades in Sylvia, which pulls together three teenage girls plotting revenge the night of a school dance. A snappy suffusion of 90s nostalgia, feminine friendship, and African folklore. It is as charming as it is grisly. So all the shorts selected for Generation Now, including Sylvia, are available to watch for free on BFI Player until the 20th of October. But do be aware that this one includes bloody gore, drug use, and strong language. I would say watch it if you're watching this at home. Go and watch it right now, and then in 20 minutes time, come back and watch the rest of the interview because it's there and it's for free, and you can just watch it and you can enjoy it because it's phenomenal. It's really, really good. I think we'll probably just jump right into the questions. First one is a really easy, simple one. Tara, could you just tell us a bit about yourself, about Sylvia, and where you got started in film?
Awesome. Again, thank you for having me. So yeah, my name's Tara. I would consider myself to be quite a new filmmaker, just dipping my toes into directing. This is the first film, Sylvia is the first film that I directed. So all very new to me. I'm primarily a writer in the genre space. Although I did get like you mentioned, I did get my first credit in a comedy on Channel 4 called Max. And yes, I also work, as you mentioned, at Ocean Group as head of development. And it's a production company where we prioritize entertaining, inspiring narratives for global audiences. Yeah, and then Sylvia is my little baby. It's my little baby. It's a short film that is a cautionary tale about three very mean girls who basically makes a series of wrong decisions, bad, poor decisions in the course of one night. And for me, it's an exploration of the power of words. I think superstition is something very commonly experienced in first and second generation households. And I really wanted to explore that kind of superstition that I wanted to explore that sort of superstition that we experience in our households growing up into young adults. And the monsters that we give life to.
It's I think for anyone watching for the first time, I've seen it, I don't know how many times now, like half a dozen maybe. But it's immediately just an immensely stylish film. There's a lot, I can't put it into words, but there's a real sense of vibrancy and style to it. I don't know how long it's been in production or how long you've been considering this idea, but were there certain non-negotiables and almost demands that you had when you were first putting it to paper that, whoever you were making it with, you said, I really want this to be a thing. I want this to be a part of Sylvia. What sort of things were they?
I think it's really it's a great question, by the way. It's really difficult to pick non-negotiables when you're working to a budget, I would firstly say. But what I felt that for me, it was mostly the periods that I wanted to stick to. I felt like it was quite important to have something that was pre-social media. For me, it was important to have that sense of nostalgia, and obviously it shows a period that I experienced myself, and so firstly that kind of was a non-negotiable. Secondly, the prosthetics and some of the ways in which we approach the horror, I would say, was like as a first-time filmmaker, I'm not sure that I should have like been putting my stress here, especially when if you watch if you watch the film, you would know that like a lot of the horror is centered or comes right at the end. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but yeah, the horror steps onto the scene right at the end, and that was kind of where I wanted to put a lot of focus. I wanted it to feel real and inescapable, and so we made like a prosthetic tongue, and yeah, it's like really fun stuff. And we'd had like a little bit of stunt work as well, which one of my actors, Amy, had to rehearse for, and it was like in the tight space, and yeah, like it wasn't non-negotiable to feel like for all of these things to feel quite real and authentic. But yeah, that I feel like that's those are two things. And then of course, I think probably even more important than the first two things I mentioned, was my cast and crew. I felt as a first-time filmmaker, I needed to surround myself with more experienced, more talented people than myself. You made a comment on the look and the feel, and that was like a lot of that was down to my DOP Max, who was absolutely incredible. He got the idea, the tone, and I will just say like Euphoria was like a big reference, like visual reference to it, because it's beautiful, but it also goes to those kind of raw and gritty places.
It's about mean
So,
people.
sorry?
It's about mean people. It's about
Yeah,
horrible
yeah,
people in the
yeah.
same way. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned a little bit. Obviously, you mentioned Euphoria, but you mentioned a bit about horror films, and I know going into this, you were a pretty big fan of horror anyway. What sort of horror? What maybe horror films you grew up watching, or what sort of horror inspired Sylvia and inspired the sorts of maybe the characters that inhabit it, or just the style of the horror itself, where there's focus on folklore? What were you pulling from? What were you giving to your crew as inspiration?
So I think the way I always spoke to my anyone I told this idea to, it was always Euphoria meets Mean Girls with a tall glass of Carrie. And that that was like the catchphrase for this film. Because yeah, it's exactly those things. It follows a female friendship that is quite toxic. There's a lot of peer pressure that these kids are experiencing. There's a lot of manipulation and giving into, I guess, some of the more cruel tendencies of teenagers.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, Mean Girls felt like a right fit. It's also, I don't know whether you found it funny at all, but there was a lot of
Yeah.
dark humor intended for the film. And so, yeah, Mean Girls, Carrie, I think for obvious reasons, it kind of shows the transformation of the victim becoming the perpetrator and that role reversal.
Hmm.
I quite liked. Obviously, this short film talks a lot about or speaks on bullying, and so yeah, for obvious reasons, that's a reference. And then Euphoria, just again stylistically, I thought I wanted a film that kind of looked pretty, and kind of lulled you into this false sense of I don't really know I'm watching something else. I'm watching a drama.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
I was going to I mean, you mentioned that like that role reversal, the feeling of something switching, and the comedy. I think that is what for me makes the horror so effective. And again, I hope this isn't a spoiler, but when it does come right at the end, it's the fact that we've been sitting in what feels like a comedy drama, and then suddenly, like right at the end, snap, like out of nowhere, it hits you, and it's just fun. It's really like it comes out of nowhere, and yeah, it's exactly that Carrie feeling you mentioned, that like psh, snap. I know exactly what you mean. Um, it's essentially like I guess it's a chamber piece. It's a film. you know, obviously just basically within one room with a very limited cast. What sort of challenges did that introduce early on? And do you think you ever would have done it differently?
Um, it came with a lot of challenges because it was not a set build. So yeah, initially I actually wanted it all to be shot on Steadicam, as many filmmakers
Mm-hmm.
do. And we got to this location, we found this location, and to be honest, I loved the location. It felt very authentic and real and familiar in the sense that it was almost identical to all the houses or flats that I had grown up with in, or that my friends had when I was coming up in the early 2000. So yeah, so it felt very real. However, it was small. So practically, we had 3 to 4 members of cast in the room at any one given time. Loads of hot lights, cameras, and mics, and all of those things. And so, yeah, it was challenging. However, I do feel I'm not sure that I would have done it differently because it it gave that sense of claustrophobia that I think it needed. Um, and yeah, I don't, to be honest, I don't know what I would have done differently because yeah, it's always hypothetical, and
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
It worked, so I guess there's no reason to change it, you know. But yeah, I mean, you've already mentioned it a little bit, but like the setting, you mentioned growing up in the early 2000s. Um, it's immediately evident just that I think the setting and the time period when you're watching it, you've got like the Nokia 3310, the DJ Luck and MC Neat Needle Drop, and I noticed even the packaging on the hooch is like period specific hooch packaging, which is I don't think I've seen before. That's, you know, groundbreaking step there. What was, I mean, you mentioned a little bit like the kind of that feeling of pre-social media, but what inspired that of having a late 90s kind of early noughties setting?
Um, I again, it was just something that I had experienced, but hadn't seen very much. I hadn't really seen Black British culture um, shown or depicted like that in film. I mean, more often these days, we are seeing an emergence of our stories being told from a like more recent period. However, yeah, for me, that I just wanted to be able to see and feel yeah, the history there. And also I find it aesthetically appealing. I don't know, I just found it a little bit more visual of a visual feast to kind of just yeah, to play with, and to yeah, I, it was just a bit of fun.
Obviously, Generation Now is about it's about people like the challenges that young people face growing up right now. It's about anxieties and the stresses that we face. And obviously, this is a film set in the early noughties, late 2000s. But do you think, in spite of it, you know, actually being set 20 years ago, that it does still have something to say about things happening now, about young people growing up now and the sort of lives they live?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
sorry that you have to say that all again.
It's okay.
But yeah, absolutely. I think it has a lot to say about just friendship, which is like a universal experience that we all go through as as people come of age. They have friendship groups that influence the way they grow and become themselves. It For me, like friendship, the friendship has a responsibility to kind of like friends have the responsibility to guide each other, and it felt like for me these characters were making all of the wrong choices, however,
Mm,
and hence why it's a kind of cautionary tale. But yeah, for me it's about friendship, it's about female friendship, um, and I think those things are relevant today as they were yesterday.
mhm,
I think it's important, like it's just important for us to see them as flawed characters who
mhm,
make the wrong choice, and hopefully people watching might find it
mhm.
I don't know, like a little bit of a kind of, yeah, I don't know.
I think I think you can definitely recognize, even like in spite of the social media, in spite of the lack of it or any of that, that you recognize stuff about, certainly, I mean, completely different upbringing child, but you recognize those common elements of like growing up in Britain. I think just about during that same era, that lifestyle and that sort of the bantering and that sort of like sense of meanness, I think is something that basically anyone that grew up in this country and probably anywhere else can locate, can pick up on. I think it's like universal, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, the characters themselves. Um, you, what was the process in building them? Were you working collaboratively with was it Charlene, Heather, and Amy, or is this mostly just a you? Did you have them really clearly in your mind when you first you were writing up the film, or is it like was this a collaborative process?
Yeah. So the script was entirely written um, by myself.
Mm-hmm.
However, through the development process with Rachel Springett, who was one of the execs on the project, she kind of helped me hone the characters a bit more to kind of differentiate them. Even though they kind of come as a collective, they're also like they also have quite distinct qualities about each of them. Kemi is the gossip to
Mm-hmm.
her own detriment, and Anita is kind of just driven by, well, she's a very manipulative character, but she's also driven by her pain in a way, and so exerts that on others. And Emma is just a bit, um, she's a bit of a follower. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I think you can learn something from each of those archetypes. But in terms of how Charlene, Heather, and Amy it came, yeah, I felt like they breathed life into this character and into these characters. Um, the audition process was an interesting one because we had to find um, or for me, it was really important that the dynamics between all of the girls felt real and
Mm-hmm.
authentic. And the moment we got them in for their chemistry test, it was just like they were just bantering naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of these ladies are like opposite, the complete opposite to the characters that they're playing, but they brought, yeah, they, I don't know, they just brought a level of authenticity to each role. When they auditioned, I even remember Charlene saying, like, I was so impressed with her. And by the way, she is just like a first time actor, which I thought was so like her performance was so impressive. But she was saying that she knew the characters, and so that's kind of how she was able to add a little bit of this and her own flavor to the characters. So there was a little bit of improv,
Mm-hmm.
um, and which I loved, and I was happy to work with them on that, whatever felt most natural to them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that answers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting because you said a little bit that you've obviously worked sort of like adjacent to, or certainly inside the film industry and television for a number of years now. But you were saying that this is the first film that you've actually directed, which is kind of like is like news to me because it does. I genuinely assumed that it was some, this was like the seventh or eighth project that someone had done. Why do you and maybe this is too like introspective. I don't want to dredge or whatever. But why do you think this is you've only decided to want to direct something now? Why was it that you weren't like a lot of people like directing right out the gate at film school? Why maybe what brought you into development rather than writing and directing your own stuff early on?
I Let me think about that.
I know that's like an immense.
I think there are so many reasons why that I won't unpack all of them now, but I think overall it was, in terms of directing, it was mostly a lack of confidence in myself and my own ability, and even in my writing, to be honest, because I, I feel like I've always been a writer. I was born a writer, writing poetry, everything from poetry
Mhm,
to short films, to short stories. I've always had to kind of tell stories.
mhm,
The only problem was I was kind of hiding that from the world. The only one who got to read anything that I wrote was my dad. Um, and yeah, he loved some of it and he really didn't like others, but he was always honest and he always encouraged me. And so I felt like going into development was a natural fit for me just because I love storytelling. And I love working with creators to help build their stories and their worlds and their characters. Um, so that felt all natural. It was only from trying to find something to develop with Rachel Springett that I kind of took that leap of faith and slid in my project at the last minute and kind of just showed her what I was working on. And it was, yeah, it was really refreshing and heartwarming and exciting to know that other people connected with the idea. And so yeah, it took a while, but I think it was just a lack of confidence that prevented me from taking that leap. And I'm not entirely sure that I am a natural director. Um, I would love to do it again. I think there's something quite like addictive about being able to breathe life into these character into any character and any world. But yeah, it's something that I would have to really pull out of myself.
I mean, going on from that, what do you possibly see yourself moving into next? Do you think you're really attached to the characters from Sylvia and you maybe want to, maybe perhaps, you want to adapt it into a feature or a television thing? That is, if you're considering doing, staying within directing, or is there already some other new projects that you're like, you quietly have on the back burner that you're with, LFF 2025, you're like, that we're going with this. Do are you ready to jump straight back into directing when LFF 24 is finished, or are you happy to spend a couple of more years kind of percolating new ideas?
I always have I always have ideas. It's just about finding the right timing. Like the first part, to answer the first part of your question, yes, we're adapting Sylvia into a TV show and we're doing that with yay. It is actually really fun. We're doing that with fifth season and so it's a co-production between fifth season and Ocean Group and we'll hopefully be taking that out soon. Just a little bit more development work needed there, but yeah, the world's I guess the story is very different from the story in Sylvia. It's got a new title, borrowed some of the characters, but also we will be following a new protagonist who is a little more endearing. Than the trio, but they will still be in the periphery of characters that surround her. So yeah, there's that. I'm also writing, I'm not directing, but I'm also writing a Channel 4 show. It's in development with Channel 4 actually, I should say. I'm co-writing that with Oti Fagbele. So yeah, there's a few things that I'm working on. In terms of directing, I would love to direct something else. It's yeah, it's just about finding the time between the day job and yeah, the other writing commitments that I have.
I think that's like just the story of anyone trapped in or adjacent to the film industry, is having to balance that, or outside of it. I don't know. It's that horrible balance of day job versus passion projects and stuff like that. But I think you've done it very well. Obviously, Film Academy usually speaks to filmmakers who are, right at the beginning of their career in the industry. But getting something screened at London Film Festival is like kind of quite an immense feat. What advice do you think you would give to like maybe young filmmakers who have just seen Sylvia or seen projects like it, and maybe they might be slightly younger, they might be slightly older, but are now in the position where they think, I want to do that. I want to be like, I either want to direct or I want to write, but basically I want to do something like that. What would you perhaps say to them?
I would say, not that I am coming from a place of immense experience in that front, but I would say put yourself out there. This is what I would say to myself: put yourself out there, be confident. Not everyone is going to love or get what you have to say. It might not be for everyone, but it'll be for someone, and it'll connect with someone. Um, yeah, I think putting yourself out there, being confident, and surrounding yourself with more talented people than yourself, because that, yeah, for me, that's how I got Sylvia made. I had incredible producers, exec producers, DOPs, everyone from costume design to makeup to, like, I have enormous gratitude to everyone who made this happen. It was not a single man feat at all. And so yeah, find people that believe in you is what I would say.
Nice. I think that might possibly be a really, really, really lovely, good, quiet place to end it on then, I think. So yeah, this has been a really fantastic little Q&A with Tr Ayeni. Yeah, that concludes it. I obviously just want to say massive, massive thank you to you for participating and sitting down and talking to us about this really fantastic little short film. Obviously festival season is like incredibly busy at the best of times, but you know, you've taken time out of your day of what I don't doubt it's like an immensely packed schedule. So yeah, I know I speak for basically everyone at Film Academy and everyone watching at home. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you have enjoyed, if you're watching today and you've enjoyed seeing, there are many, many more just like this with other young programmers and filmmakers on the BFI YouTube channel. Once more, you can watch Sylvia on BFI Player. Do it now. And if you yourself are a young film enthusiast looking to break into the screen industries, be sure to check out Film Academy Day at London Film Festival on Sunday 20th. That is in 3 days. And you also only have 3 days left to watch the short, so get on it. Events during Film Academy Day offers something a little different from what you're used to at LFF. And this year includes panels on Celtic language cinema, feminist body horror, protest filmmaking, and the history of HIV representation in film and TV, as well as many more screen talks with other film industry professionals like Tárá. You can find the full program on the BFI's website or on Film Academy socials. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's everything. Thank you once more, just one more time to Tárá. And yeah, my name is Felix Farrow, and this has been BFI Film Academy Scene. Thank you all, and good night. Bye.